Counselor Pearson, can you hear me?
Okay, let me see if I got my settings on here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Oh, we're looking good already.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, May the 12th. Nice to see everyone here. I see you online, Councillor Pearson. Excellent. You
Yes,
can
I'm
hear
here.
everything okay? Sounds
Yeah,
good.
can you hear me
And we can see you. Looks like you got a lot of sunshine there, so that's good.
in the background?
Thanks for joining virtually. I do wish to begin today by acknowledging that the District of Sooke is on the traditional unceded lands of the Sooke and Sianu nations. And council, I'll turn your attention to the agenda and look for approval of tonight's agenda, please. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Bateman. All those in favor, please. That's carried unanimously. Item 4 is adoption of meeting minutes. We can do them as a block. So we have April 28th special council, April 28th regular council, April 29th special council, May the 5th special council. Move adoption by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Bateman. Any questions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Next up is item 5, an invited presentation. We have our RCMP quarterly report, so we're pleased to welcome our Staff Sergeant, Greg Wilcox. Thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Mayor Tate, members of council, thank you very much for having me this evening and for allowing me to come and present the quarterly report for the Sooke detachment. The report in question is going to cover a period from January 1st to March 31st of this past year. So at one of our last meetings, I'm not sure if it's the last one or the one before, but we discussed priorities for the Sooke detachment for the annual performance plan. And this is what, after the feedback we got from a number of different stakeholders, this is what we're coming back with. So these are, as a reminder, the main priorities that the Sooke detachment and the membership is going to be focusing on. So for these type of priorities, we make plans throughout the year and in our day-to-day operations to ensure that we execute on our objectives. So after the feedback that we've gotten, some of the things are going to be the same. Some are changed slightly. Enhanced road safety. We're going to be targeting impaired, aggressive, and distracted drivers in the community. The second one is prolific offenders and organized crime. This is to create different measures to target those two entities. Third one is accountability and community engagement. So in short, to be accountable to this council and other stakeholders, and also to engage in the community as much as we possibly can. The fourth is to look after our own members that work at our detachment. This is a very hard job to do with a lot of stresses that come with it. In order for my officers to be effective, we have to look after them, and that's our fourth one. And the fifth one is relationship building with Indigenous communities and reconciliation. So to dive a little bit deeper into our annual performance plan, this is some of the examples that we're going to be focusing on. So again, focus on offenders and prolific offenders in the community. As I've mentioned to this council before, there's a small group of individuals that create the most amount of problems in our community. And when we do target enforcement and focus on that, and we can, for lack of a better term, keep them under control, then the idea is it's going to reduce the crime that they commit in the community. Target known and emerging drug traffickers. We've had a number of media releases recently with some very significant seizures that we've done in the community, and this is just to continue on dealing with that issue. Another one directly from the council is more engagement with the youth in the schools. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and it's a very important thing for us to be able to engage with our youth, engage with the students, engage with the schools in a positive manner, and be more integrated. We'll try the best with what we can, but we have some strategies to put ourselves into schools more than when we were last year. Another is to continue to focus on impaired drivers. Last year, the calendar year, we've had the most impaired drivers ever. We've caught the most ever with 142. So it actually beat our previous record by about 20 impaired drivers. And the last one is to continue to enhance our police services in a growing community. So this is just a snapshot of police files year to date. So I took files, how many calls for service that we've had from January 1st of 2025 to May 9th of 2025. And I wanted to look at essentially this year and the past 3 years from 2022. So as you can see from the graph, so 2025, we're at 2,258 calls for service as of May 9th. This is the highest total that this is higher in as the preceding 3 years, and it's actually up by 20%. I had to rerun this again, to make sure that I had my numbers right. But we are up 20% in our calls for service from this time last year. Certainly more from the year before, and about the same from 2022. So if we continue with this, with how busy we are, we can expect that we'd have just shy of 6,400 calls for service by the end of the year. Now, this is on one caveat that our busy summer season hasn't started yet. So the unofficial kickoff for summer is August long weekend. And that's when certainly our calls that we get daily certainly goes up at that time. So we will see what happens here. When I presented a similar stat last year, I can't remember exactly what council meeting, but we had a projection of 5,790 files that would happen last year, and we finished with 5,795. So we were pretty close. We'll see how close I am this time around. Now, before I move to the next slide, I'm sure I'm going to get asked this question, and I'll try and answer it the best that I can right now, is why are the calls for service going up? It's simply because there's just more people here. I'm sure there's other reasons as well, but these are just kind of the general calls for service. This can be anything from a traffic complaint all the way to something that's very serious. And we just have more people that's moving in here, which will mean more calls for service. So I'm trying my best to paint a picture for council with some of the types of files that we deal with. And I thought I'd try something a little bit different here. So these are 3 different file examples that my membership had to deal with in the past quarter. Unfortunately, when we go to calls, there's some very easy ones, and there's some incredibly dangerous calls that we have to go to, not just for us, but also for other people involved. So one of the calls, for example, is a person with a firearm was having essentially a mental health episode and was extremely dangerous to the public. This person barricaded himself in the house, which created a dangerous situation for the officers and the public at large. After a lengthy standoff, he was taken into custody without incident and brought to the hospital for evaluation. This was obviously a very serious call that we went to. Whenever we have to stage in front of a house, it's obviously very worrisome for the neighborhood, but we also have no idea what's gonna, what this individual's planning on doing. Now, in this case, he was brought without incident and everything was fine. But obviously, a call like this will take up every resource that I have, and we have to bring in outside resources to help us. Another one is a domestic disturbance where a male with a firearm was damaging property, threatening his spouse, and making suicidal comments. My officers with a health canine and our emergency response team responded. The female victim was assaulted, fled with her children. The male was arrested, and a safety plan was made with the victim. This is an example of a serious domestic dispute that we went to this past quarter. I will say with these things happen everywhere. Like, I'm not showing this to say, these type of situations specifically happen in Sooke. They happen everywhere, and unfortunately, they happen all the time. And that's why we have the training that we have, and we need the people that we have in order to go there and deal with it safely. Again, this ended very well, and everybody was safe with this particular incident. Another one was we initiated a drug trafficking and sexual exploitation investigation after receiving information that 2 males were allegedly taking advantage of young, vulnerable women between the ages of 19 and 22 years old. Police arrested 1 male and seized illicit drugs from a house. A search warrant was executed, and a lengthy search of the residence took place. This particular one, there's a media release done on it, but it this was quite an extensive investigation. And when I came here a few months ago and I spoke about major crime unit and the reasons why it's good to have that, this is a perfect example of why we need this. For this particular investigation, they take hundreds and hundreds, if not more hours from the time we find out about it to the time it goes through court. This involves judicial authorizations. I've been an affiant for a number of years when I was on major crime. Sometimes these things are 100 pages long, and that's just how it is. And it takes a long time to compose and write and then defend that authorization in court. So I want to put this up here for comparable police service calls year to date. So we take Sooke with our 2,258 calls for service. And I just took local places that people will know. Oak Bay is about half of us, or sorry, half of the calls for service that we're getting. Powell River, it's about 10% less at 2,074. Sydney North Saanich, I believe with a population of around 25,000 people, has 2,084, and Central Saanich just shy of 1,300. So I guess one takeaway to take from this is that, again, it's just another example of Sooke is growing, because 10 or 15 years ago, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I don't think that they would be close to a place like Sydney North Saanich or Powell River. We took some specific call types that we're having, and I want to bring that to council's attention. This is one that I've brought before in a quarterly report, and I want to bring it back just for a update. So these are mental health calls for service. These are, again, when we respond to a call for service involving somebody who's suffering from a mental health issue, it's because they're in a crisis. So under the Mental Health Act, we can apprehend somebody if they're a danger to themselves, i.e. they're suicidal or wanting to harm themselves, or they're a danger to somebody else for those same reasons. So from January to March of 2025, we had 55, which is slightly above last year, but it's negligible. But the good news is we are down quite a bit from the first quarter in January to March of 2023, about 14%. So impaired drivers, we're off to I don't know if this is a good start or a bad start. I'm not really too sure. Sorry, that's supposed to say from January to March instead of April to June. But from the first quarter of this year, we had 41 that we caught. Last year, 33, and the year before is 26. So we're up about 24% from last year. Again, with impaired drivers, it's very much a double-edged sword. So the impaired drivers on the roads in Sooke and everywhere in British Columbia, they exist. These are the ones that we catch. So for last year, for example, we caught 33. There's no way of actually knowing this, but it could be very possible that there's approximately the same amount of impaired drivers are actually physically on the road. These are just the ones that we catch. Drug trafficking. So this is one of our most time-consuming nonviolent investigations that we will investigate. Again, the dates at the bottom are wrong. They should be January to March. So my apologies for that. At any rate, for this past quarter, we've had 8 compared to 6 and 4 of the previous 2 years. So at any rate, these, again, are one of the most labor-intensive investigations that we have to investigate. They often involve judicial authorizations and a lot of disclosure, not to mention a lot of lab work as well. And I tried to keep it as short as I possibly can, but I'm open to any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I'll turn to Councillor Beddoes, please.
Yeah, thank you for your work, because it sounds like it's pretty scary at times for some of your officers, and I, for one, appreciate them having to go to these very dangerous situations. My question is, you mentioned 2 firearms-related calls, and I'm sure you might have had more with firearms. Are you finding that the firearms call, are these legally owned weapons? People have like a PAL that they can own the weapon, or a restricted firearm, they've got the expanded one. What's your experience with that? Are they legally owned weapons?
Yeah, I can talk about Sooke specifically in my general experience, but I don't think it differs much from other places I certainly police. But most of the firearms that we seize are the typical makes and models are rifle shotguns. So they're non-restricted firearms. Typically, most people have a PAL associated with them as well. The only time that they're certainly before they're restricted firearms and now they're prohibited. So that would be handguns. That would be like the carbine platform, like the AR-15 type platform type of rifles. People before used to be able to hold those. Now they can't purchase those anymore. When I worked in major crime, we dealt with a lot of high-level gangs and gang members and that sort of thing. The firearms that they had were often, they never had a PAL. They were often prohibited or restricted guns. So handguns with a 12 to 15 round magazine, a assault style rifle with a 30 round magazine. And typically most of these come from the States. They're bought on the black market and they come up from the border. The ones that we're seizing specifically here, and we actually we had to destroy a number of firearms just today. And we utilized one of our trucks to bring them to get them destroyed. And I can tell you a vast majority of them, 90% were all rifles, shotgun type makes.
Thank you.
Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, thanks for the report and good to see you back in chambers again. Now I'm looking at the operational goals and I don't have the previous ones in front of me. But I do know that you're going to continue. Wait a sec. I'm looking at operational goals, annual performance plan, relationship building with the Indigenous communities, employee excellence and workplace culture. Was prolific offenders and organized crime in your previous? It was, yes. Yeah, but more explicit here. And accountability and community engagement, that too is new in the mix.
So in regards to the prolific offenders, yes, that was very much on there previously. What was added was the organized crime element. One of the things that we're seeing here in the community is that there seems to be a higher volume of quote unquote organized crime members. That doesn't mean it's like there's a biker gang moving in or anything like that. It's just there's a whole gamut of these type of people, and there's just a gamut of them moving in, and we want to have a more focus on that.
So that's your general investigative services unit that you're.
Yes, that's going to be correct, and that's why they're so important.
Yeah. So this incident with the that you referred as the third of the incidents, April 28th, that would have been a GIS style investigation, but done by one of your officers. How does that work? Just give me the breakdown.
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you for that. So at the time, we didn't have the GIS unit or major crime unit, just as a reminder for everybody. And what we did was we had police officers that we have right now that do have that background, but they're wearing a uniform and they have to go to 911 calls for service. So we essentially had them off the road to focus on that stuff temporarily because it was such a important file that we had to investigate, and they're dealing with that. And the investigation is one thing, but what actually takes up a lot of our time is actually disclosure. It's the actual disclosure process of all the material that we have, which could be thousands of pages of documents, giving it to Crown in a readable and searchable manner. And then they do their charge approval process. And the disclosure, to give you an example, a very easy homicide easily takes 1 year to do a full disclosure on.
And to be clear, in this latest budget of ours that we've approved, did we in fact establish a GIS unit this year?
Yes, we did. So there's going to be 2 positions that I'm going to manage the budget through vacancies. And we are, for the first time in Sooke, going to have a GIS or major crime unit, or the beginnings of one.
Okay. And one final question of many I could ask, but more engagement with the youth in schools. So I'm interested in that. Is this going to see a school police liaison officer role, or are you aspiring to that one day?
I very much would like nothing more in this community than to have a full-time school or youth engagement officer or community officer. However, this was one of the things that was asked for by the council during our consultation is, can you be in the schools more? And I couldn't agree more. I want to be in the schools more. Now, unfortunately with this is the caveat to it is that the members who are very dedicated, they're assigned schools, and however, they're a slave to the radio at the end of the day. So sometimes what we find is if they have an activity at the school, regardless of what it may be, they might be there for 5 minutes and then have to go because they get a call, or they can't go at all because they're on a call. I can tell you every single officer that's working in Sooke as I left the office was at a call for service. So it's very, very challenging. Saying that, people in the community and the public have probably seen us out a lot more doing school zone enforcement. That's something that we're doing a lot now. So,
Councillor St. Pierre?
Through your worship to Sergeant. I'm curious about the disclosure and the amount of time spent. I know we had a couple of good chats about that, and I'm hoping to actually just bring that forward insofar as you're comfortable to do so. So my understanding from what you were saying is that about 80% of the police work is administrative, and a significant portion of that administrative work is disclosure and specifically extensions to retain evidence, and that process has started early on, that it used to be very simple, and that a number of changes in legislation have actually increased the workload significantly without actively making the cases better or necessarily providing, a fair trial or anything like that. It's really just administrative burden. I'm trying to get a sense, given the extraordinary cost of policing and our rising need for policing, of what that really costs Sooke specifically. And I don't know if you can give me a number, but I was trying to crunch it myself. And based on 80%, and if I was to guesstimate 50%, I had some numbers, but my numbers look like about, $1 to $2 million on just that. Could you elucidate?
it's a good question, and I think everybody in the room would be upset if I spent the next 3 to 4 hours trying to dissect it. But the very short end of it is we do spend a lot more time doing essentially paperwork at the end of the day. So it means more police officers in the detachment doing stuff like disclosure and that sort of thing. We have to follow the rules that are set out by different courts in terms of the disclosures. Some of the very famous cases, one is Regina versus Stitchcomb. That specifically deals with how we disclose files and the amount of and the way it should be disclosed. So we actually have specific training and courses that the RCMP members go on to make sure that they can do it properly, because if things aren't disclosed properly, the courts just simply won't accept it at all. At the end of the day, we lose the investigation, especially if we don't disclose all the material that we have. So that's very, very important. The other one that we have is Regina versus Jordan, which puts a time limit on when these things can be brought before court. So it's typically about 18 months for provincial court, and it's 30 months for Supreme Court. That may sound like a very long time, but it isn't. So what happens is, especially when you compound all the other investigations that we have, but essentially at the end of the day, what that means is the members are spending more time, all at once, as opposed to spreading it out time in the office to get that stuff done. And I can tell you, every time I go into the office, I hear a lot of typing because they're hard at work doing that. Now, saying that, in terms of the cost, there are ways to reduce the costs and keep our police officers out on the road more. For example, with GIS, for example, something I'll bring up at the budget meeting, but we can easily have, be paying however much we pay for a police officer right now to spend their entire time doing disclosure. Or what, for an ideal GIS unit, we would actually have a support person, like that's, cost 1/3 the cost of a police officer, and they would be put in the position for that admin work and disclosure, so that my officers can spend more time, especially in GIS. There's a lot of warrants that have to be written. There's a lot of statements that have to be taken and that sort of thing. So there's efficiencies that way if you front end load it a little bit. So one of the things for the budget meeting, but we'll be looking for 2 new support staff, one specifically to just deal with our disclosure stuff, so the other officer can can spend more time on the investigation, which is the important thing. But in terms of the actual hours that we spent on the road comparing to the office, I can't give an exact percentage, but I can say there's a lot more time that we spend in the office than we do out on the road.
Mhm. Okay, well, you're lucky this is not a court because I might grill you further on that one. Because I'm looking for actual numbers here. But thank you very much. And I understand that you may not want to provide those numbers.
Counselor Pearson?
Yes, can you hear me there?
That,
Okay, good. Thank you for the presentation, Staff Sergeant. My question is around the preventative side of things. You have 143 impaired charges. How do we share that information as a prevention? I mean, you come to council and you give us a presentation. I'd like to think that if you're impaired driving in Sooke, you would likely get caught because of your good work. So how do you do that?
There's a couple different ways, but there's also no easy answer to it. The first thing is we can do a better job with our media releases in regards to that. So that's certainly something that actually talking to you right now, I'm probably going to do when I get back to the office is put up a media release just in regards to the impaired drivers so people know. I know word does get around, but it still is happening. Unfortunately, with an impaired driver, they do it. I know ICBC has a stat. I don't exactly know what it is, but they do it. They'll drive impaired a lot before they actually get caught. You know, I can't remember what the ratio is, and I don't even want to try and guess because I'll be wrong. But that's just kind of the reality of it. And a lot of the people that we get are, you know, unfortunately, there's an alcohol addiction issue or there's a very bad choice issue, and that's when they get caught. In terms of actual prevention, it's important to do it when people, in my opinion, when individuals are very young and they're just starting out driving. So high school is you know, is a great time to actually have an officer in the school to do you know, to do that education with the classes. And I remember that when I was in high school, and it was very impactful for me, and I know for a lot of other students, and I'm hoping to do more of that.
Thank you. Great answer. Thank you. And thank you for your great work that you do.
okay, thank you, counselors, for your questions. Just finally for myself, are you able to share the types of drugs that are being trafficked? And also with the impaired, are there a particular time of day that, or is it all the time? And is it alcohol related?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Tate. That's a great question. So in terms of the drugs for your first question, some of the things that we're getting is methamphetamine, fentanyl. We had a fairly large seizure, 3.5 kilograms of fentanyl, which can turn into an incredible amount of fake street level heroin or crack cocaine or whatever have you. Cocaine's another one. Ketamine is another one as well. And we don't see a lot of GHB, but we have gotten it. But the other ones that I mentioned seem to be, and obviously crack cocaine. So is another one that's very common that we see street level. So in regards to the second question, in terms of times of impaired, people will be shocked that we get them during the day. It's not just a nighttime thing where it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you know, somebody's coming back from downtown Victoria or downtown Langford after a few too many and they get caught. For seasoned alcoholics, we will get them right when the liquor store opens. So a liquor store opens at 11 o'clock. They go in there right at 11, they come out, and that's where we'll find them and they're still intoxicated from the night before. So it's kind of whenever. We do have a number of members that are trained in drug recognition with impaired driving. So this could be anything from, you know, illegal drugs like crack cocaine or methamphetamine or high on something like cannabis, alcohol, but also prescription medication as well. So if people are taking prescription medication and it says on the bottle, do not drive after you take this, then you shouldn't drive because you're actually impaired as well. So we do see a lot of that as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time with us. Now we need to move on. You can follow up on an email. And I appreciate the response that you're doing with the priorities and the work that we're doing together. And also just recognizing the dangerous situation that the members were in. So thank you very much for that. Of course, would like this strong start to be just the start and a quiet rest of the year, but we'll see how the reports go. And I also appreciate the time that your members took when I did my ride along. So it was a slow night in Sooke. I might sign up for a more busier evening sometime. So I'll be in touch.
Thank you very much. You're always welcome again for a ride along, your worship, and everybody else in council if you want to come see what the officers do, especially on the night shifts. So.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, which is our report of the Chief Administrative Officer. Over to Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just be brief and highlight a few things in the report today. For events, if anyone in listening or reading the report is curious about events coming up in Sooke, please visit our website at sooke.ca/events. A few events ongoing right now would be the Sooke Country Market, which is Saturdays beside the fire hall here. The Sooke Night Market on Thursdays from 5 to 8 at the museum. And coming up on June 7th will be our 25th anniversary community day. So more information can be found on our website about that. The by-election has been set. So we are in the by-election timeframe with July 12th being the voting day. And again, on our website, sooke.ca/elections will be a repository for any information you want regarding elections. And if you don't find the information there, please don't hesitate to reach out to staff and we can provide you the answers you need. On the HR front, we have an opening for a Parks Worker 1. Wastewater is screening. We are interviewing for a Parks and Environmental Services Coordinator. The Chief Building Official will be starting on June 2nd here. And Flex Firefighters is interviewing right now. And one more piece to add to this is on my next CAO report, there'll be another job added for Thomasina Barnes, our corporate services assistant back there, is moving on, much to my chagrin, but on to bigger and better things. Wish her nothing but the best. Really appreciate everything she's done for us. She started during COVID times, literally the week we had to shut down. Was I think her first week here. So it was an exciting time for her. She just hit the ground running, rolled up her sleeves. What do you need me to do? Okay, I'll do that. So just appreciate everything, Tommy. On links to our news bulletins over the last couple weeks there. And near and dear to my heart is, as a former finance director here, is property taxes. So notices should be out in the mail, I believe today. I think they were trying to get out in the mail because we did hear there could be a BC Mail strike. So, BC Mail, Canada Post strike. So trying to get ahead of that. So those should be out as you get your notices. If anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the district. A new thing for this year, as we're trying to streamline, is the ability for property owners to view payment history and outstanding balances online. There'll be information in your 2025 property tax notice on accessing that feature. This is just one of the many features. Eventually, you'll be able to pay your taxes on there. And if you're applying for permits and all that fun stuff, this is just one piece of the many features that we're going to start unlocking throughout the year here. If anyone has any questions about deferring their property taxes, that's done through the province now. So just click the link or else call staff here and we can point you in the right direction. Public participation, BC Transit and Sooke Region Museum have public participation. Information is included in the report here. Our two projects we have underway with Little River and Ravens Ridge are starting their next steps, and May 20th is starting for the Little River project there. Excited for that. There's a few pictures included. We had on April 25th, we had a couple days delayed Earth Day stewardship event in a local park there. And there's a picture of he's gone now, of course. Our manager of IT, Ryan Reinch, brought his goats and they were the hit of the day for sure. With all the school children came through and it was a fun day. Thankfully, the weather cooperated. And Councillor Beddoes and our Economic Development Officer, Gail Scott, attended Sookorama. which is always a fun day. And there's just a picture of day one of our yard waste pilot project was a success. And this is, as it said, it's a pilot project. So once we've gone through these intakes, we will reassess and then just confirm if this is something we can offer long-term, pros, cons of it, and just bring some options back. I will leave that right there and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Beddoes, please.
Yeah, Tour CEO, thank you for that report. I'm looking forward to maybe a report very soon on the Casino School project with MOTT, I guess it's called now. I had a bottle drive down there and I was just looking things over. And I know they had an open house that was canceled. Are they gonna have another one, or is this, so for this, maybe for another report, but it's just something I'm interested to hear, and I know a lot of people in the community are talking about it, and they don't know much what's really gonna happen there.
Through your worship to Councillor Beddoes, yeah, there's no new date set. The last we've heard from the province is they haven't announced a new open house date. So as soon as we know, we will make sure council and the community knows.
We can't make a call and ask what's going on.
Well, we've been asking, we just
Yeah.
don't get the answer, so we
All
can't.
right, I won't put you on the spot.
Make up
anymore.
a
Thank
date.
you.
Anything else? The motion then is that council receive the report of the CAO for information, please. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Beddoes. Did you have a question,
Yeah.
Councillor? Go ahead.
Minor ones. So I was up at Ravens Ridge wandering around, looking at all the new landscaping and the multi-sport court box. So I was just curious, when can we anticipate that the MUGA court box being open, Ms. Taylor?
Ms. Taylor's here, so I will defer that question to her.
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Bateman. Due to some shipping delays, it's extended the timeline for construction completion, excuse me, till early June. So we're just in the process of refining that end date, and we'll plan for a public opening and media release.
It's great news, yeah. And I'm curious about the yard waste. What happens with the yard waste that we deposit in the works yard? Does it go to Heartland, or is it?
Through the chair, I believe the broom waste is separated and goes to Heartland as waste. And then the yard waste goes to the organic stream at Heartland. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. Just for the sport box, as I walk through there regularly, the crew shared with me that one piece of it had not arrived with the rest of the railings. And it's a lot of grunt work because every piece is heavy. So from where they were parking, it's a couple, like they're moving this back and forth, back and forth. They had to put it all together, measure, drill the holes, take it all apart, and then reassemble it. So there's a lot of walking and a lot of work behind there. And the boulders you see were all the ones that have been dug out. The logs, everything is what has been in the ground. So just kudos to the crew because it's been a lot of sweat equity has gone into that work there.
They're low.
They are local and they've been working in all kinds of weather. So it is taking shape and it is good to see, but there was a delivery delay for sure. All in good time. Okay, so we'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to our public question and comment period. So this is for members that are here in the gallery tonight. For the item for 9.1, the parkland dedication, we can include any commentary from the applicant when that report comes forward. So you don't need to speak now in the public Q&A. We'll get the staff report and invite you forward at that time. But otherwise, I'd like to invite any members of the public forward. If you would like to comment on any item, there's up to 2 minutes. We require your name, the municipality that you reside in. We do not require your home address. Thank you.
Veronica Pemberton Billing. I live in Sooke. Welcome back, Mayor Tate. It's good to see you. It's nice to be with you all again. I'm hoping to have an opportunity to speak more than once because short agenda, but there are some things that I find deeply disturbing on this agenda. The one that I'm going to be speaking to right now is item 10.2, the online education and testing for updated road safety practices. I am frankly shocked that this council would consider this motion. This is way outside our lane. I cannot believe that the majority of Sooke residents would support this. It's shoddily put together, excuse me for saying that, but when we say an analysis of ICBC collision data, who did that analysis? Where is that analysis? Suggests, what does that mean? What does suggest mean? The drivers with outdated training, what does outdated mean? Are more likely to be involved as compared to 173 impaired drivers who drive a lot before they even get caught, as compared to prescription medication, as compared to drugs and impairment, as compared to all of that. Drivers with outdated, whatever that means, training are more likely to be involved in preventable accidents. Again, what does that mean? Is a impaired driver an preventable accident? This whole thing is rife with inaccuracies or at least things that aren't clear. And then that we're asking, therefore be it resolved that ICBC design a short online training module to require testing prior to license renewal of every driver, that we're advocating an increase in staff. We don't even know if this is useful and put onerous things on drivers. Why are we doing this at a time when the only people hiring are government? Unemployment is rising, just to say. I think this is so tone deaf. Unemployment is rising. Our economy is on the edge of a cliff, and we are wanting more administration. Just after Councillor St. Pierre, thank you, asked the police officer about more
Thank
administration.
you. We're at 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Terrence Martin, Sooke, I think it was number 5, memory serves, but anyhow, it was a police report. I've got a family member and lots of retired friends that are former service members, so I appreciate the work that police do. Speaking to the number of calls, I'd like to know what fraction of calls are actually bylaw complaints and what the procedure is to identify a bylaw complaint and refer it to bylaw enforcement. And the reason I ask that is because when it falls through the cracks like that, and I have to be on the receiving end of this, a bylaw complaint that's not going to be followed up on by the bylaw enforcement can be weaponized, and then the person makes a call to the police and involves the police on it, and it starts escalating, sucks up police resources for nothing when it should have been addressed at the bylaw stage. So that's the purpose of the question, but I'd like to know what fraction of police calls are actually bylaw complaints, and if there's a procedure to refer it to bylaw for investigation enforcement.
So we do get a breakdown of what the calls are. I don't have one with me per se, but we won't see bylaw calls listed on the police report. That will come in our own staffing reports. So it's only if something, and maybe I'll have our corporate officer chime in, where it was to escalate, where a bylaw officer may needed to call in the RCMP, that would be different because there could be a criminal piece there, but we don't.
Yeah, understood. So that's the problem
there.
because it's going to be invisible to you. It'll be the police that get the call.
No,
because
they come by, I'll turn to our corporate officer or our CAO on this one, but our bylaw reporting is different.
You misunderstand my point. When bylaw won't follow it up, right?
Okay.
They dismiss the complaint and then the person goes to the police to try to have a bylaw complaint run through the police, which they do, and I can tell you the details of it. I won't do it right now, but this council's aware of it. I've been here before on this issue.
Okay.
So yeah, and then you guys don't know anything about it because it goes directly through the police, ties up police resources, is ultimately dismissed as a civil matter or something else. But nevertheless, they have to take the complaint and they have to investigate it, and it is time consuming. And one instance of
thank you. I have the microphone and you're at time, but I'll just make a note that we can pull out one of the last reports and you'll see that that's a very small call for service.
So
like they're all tracked. All of the reports that come in tell us exactly what the calls for services are. Impaired driving, mischief, break and enter, like they're all categorized.
I'll watch the next one and hopefully the amount of time that has gone into this shows up on it because it started as a bylaw complaint.
Okay.
And it sucked.
Well, if
a
you
lot of-
have a concern, you should
Yeah.
maybe write to us about it and we
I've
can
done that.
explore it a bit further. I don't have any correspondence from you on this matter, so please.
I'll bring
feel
it back
free.
to your attention.
Okay,
Thanks.
sounds good. Thank you. Other speakers, please?
Ellen Lors, I want to ditto everything that Veronica Pemberton said about the online education testing for updated road safety, because especially listening to the police report. The last thing we need is more bureaucrats. But I want to speak to the Malicious Freedom and Information Protection Act. We spoke to this before, and now I see that the charges to increase the charges have been taken off, but you're stating that I'd like to, what's clearly defined frivolous and vexation, who decides that? Vexatious requests, who decides that? I certainly don't want government officials deciding what's vexatious or frivolous, because it might be frivolous to one, might be very important to somebody else. One of the things I was asking is I want to do an FOI, find out why we have accidents on Sooke Road, because I understand there's a lot of medical, but just not just medical, as a police report, there's also intoxicated air. What is it? What's causing that? And of course, testing for driver's licenses. I don't think that's going to fix anything. It's just a waste of time. And number two, appoint a parliamentary committee. In June of 2021, the Legislative Assembly already appointed a special committee. It was established. And in I believe February 2023, there was already, the FOIPA was established. So why to bring this up and to add to more bureaucracy doesn't make any sense at all. It's really important because I'd like to do an FOI on why there's so many accidents on Sooke Road. What's the cause of them? Is that frivolous? Somebody might think it's frivolous. So anyway, those just some points to make.
Thank you, Ms. Lurs. Other speakers? Sorry, can you turn the microphone back on? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Strongwind, and I'm a resident of Sooke. I'd like to speak to two items today. Item 9.1, new parkland dedication, Yay Parks. I fully support this report, and I recommend that Sauk Nation be given the first option to name this new park if the opportunity arises. Item 10.3, Sooke Transit Service. I'd like to thank Councillor Pearson for following up on this email from Peter Stokoe, and I'd also like to thank the mayor for her ongoing advocacy on the Regional Transit Committee. As a former commuter to the legislative buildings, the transit ride to downtown Victoria is arduous, and I agree with Mr. Stokoe that improvements to Sooke routes are desperately needed. I recently took the transit survey that Ms. Gray mentioned earlier regarding routes 61 and 65, and I added several recommendations, including adding a shuttle to Sooke potholes, free transit within Sooke for seniors and students, and an express route to downtown Victoria. Furthermore, I'd like to also propose that the District of Sooke create a transportation task force to continue to look for solutions to the congestion on Highway 14, including improved transit services, particularly as we are hoping to attract more tourism as part of our economic development plan. Lastly, I'd like to invite you all to join us at the Summer Solstice celebration, which is also National Indigenous Peoples Day on Saturday, June 21st at the Sooke Community Hall. More information to come on that. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your work.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Okay. And that's on. Okay. Hi, first timer here. My name is Bree. I'm from Sooke. I just wanted to build on the discussion of the FOI. I work in the provincial government. I have been on many receiving ends of FOI requests, and I wasn't sure if you were aware, so I just wanted to point out around the definition. So I think it's number 1 here. There is actually quite a list on the act that does explain it. It's obviously not exhaustive, but there are lists of considerations. So I just wanted to point that out, that it might be worth revisiting or visiting before advocating to the UBCM. And also, I know Ellen had mentioned that the Legislative Assembly did appoint a special committee that was established in 2021. And in 2022, they did hold a public hearing for feedback from individuals, municipalities, whomever. So I don't know if it might be worth reaching out to that committee as well, if you do have feedback to provide. So that was all.
Sorry, I missed your name. Could you?
Bree.
Bree.
Yes.
Thank you. Can you give us your surname as well?
Gasquire.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Do you want me to spell? I was going to say I can spell it, but yeah. Okay.
Other speakers, please. Is anyone here for a first time? Any first time speakers? It's your final call. Okay.
Good evening. My name's Tracy Clark. I'm a resident of Sooke. And I just wanted to follow up on Veronica Pemberton's comments as well as Ellen Lure's with respect to the 2 items. With the driver re-education program, it's my understanding that the province is responsible for transportation for drivers' licenses, and ICBC is responsible for executing on the laws. I don't understand what the municipality, what Sooke has to do with being involved in adding to those programs. Also with the FOIA, I'm a big proponent of free speech. I think we've seen a lot of issues around misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it, but shutting down of voices. And I think in that regard, we should be building more communication and understanding between citizens and bureaucracies and governments, and instead of trying to shut people down. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarity, folks, these are notices of motion. So that's a tool that any member of council can use and can make a submission at one meeting and have it debated at the next. So that's why they're on the agenda. Ms. Pemberton, you wanted to speak a second time. Okay. This will be our final speaker tonight.
Veronica Pemberton, filling Sooke. So I just will say I have an extraordinary amount of appreciation for the work you do, but I am so concerned. I understand it's a notice of motion, and I appreciate your clarifying that. But I wanted to speak generally to, I really think council's lost the plot about serving the people of Sooke. This FOIA motion, that is nothing but a suppression on free speech, and I do not think it supports. If you ask the simple question, does this support the citizens of Sooke? I think the answer is no. The online education, not in our lane, and highly inconvenient to people. And I just, as I said, I don't think people would support it. And along with that, and I appreciate the clarity about notice of motion, was my reading in the paper a couple of weeks ago about we went to the UBC and I'm so proud because we got them to pass a motion that the Human Rights Tribunal should hire more people. Again, not in our lane. Is 18 months too long, as we said, for that to be resolved? I don't think so. Who knows on a legal case? And are we pressuring the provincial government to hire more staff? What about more doctors? And why are we using political capital on motions like that when there's political capital about why is the provincial government, excuse me, this is important. Why are we not having a motion for the provincial government to back off? Why are we not using a motion to have them stop downloading expenses into the municipalities. These motions take time and they take political capital. And I think we're a little bit misguided with them. And therefore, the final thing I say is when we get to point 14, that we're going to adjourn the meeting to discuss in private things that we don't want to have public. Before, when I read that, I had inordinate trust in the focus and the clarity of the councillors to focus on Sooke. Now with these other motions, that's crumbling.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pemberton. Okay, thank you everyone for your comments tonight. We will move on into the consent agenda. We have two items. We're moving on, Ms. Lewis. Thank you. Oops, sorry. I'm hitting the wrong. No, I did say that that was our final speaker for the evening and we're moving on in the agenda. Okay, so we're moving on to our consent agenda, and that would be that the following items on the agenda be adopted by consent. That's item 8.2, correspondence and a proclamation for the Moosehide campaign. So look for a motion from Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Beddoes. Any comments? Is anyone extracting? Councillor?
Yeah, I'd like to
Bateman.
extract two items. That's number E, Chamber Sponsorship, Business Excellence Awards, and H, Schuyler Lindbergh, re 2396 Mountain Heights Drive for the next council meeting, please.
Okay, so two items to come off to the next meeting. The rest will be received tonight. So I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 9, which is our reports for parkland dedication for 7360 West Coast Road. Over to staff, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item relates to a proposed parkland dedication associated with a 33-lot subdivision at 7350 West Coast Road. The applicant is proposing to dedicate 0.56 hectares of parkland at this stage of development, with a commitment to provide the required 5% overall through a phased approach. Staff are seeking Council's preliminary support for this dedication, subject to a covenant securing a comprehensive phased park plan, which will be finalized and brought forward at a later date. The Manager of Parks and Environmental Services and I are available for any questions you may have.
Okay, that's all you got? Just, okay. I'll ask, the applicant is here with us tonight. Was there anything to add or? Sure, if you like. Yeah, that way everyone can hear you, and Councillor Pearson is online, so
Yes.
that'll help. Thank you.
My name is Dean, Madam Mayor, members of council, my name is Dean Strongatharm. I'm here with Brian Butler for Airland Investments Limited. I'm a community planner. I've been involved in both the subdivision and the rezoning application. And I think the staff report is very clear. This is really just for advisement to council at this time. There is a combination of a subdivision and a rezoning application. And when the rezoning application comes before council in the very near future, it includes the dedication of approximately 18 hectares of parkland and another 6 hectares of what I refer to as SPIA, or at least riparian area dedication, as opposed to if it was strictly a subdivision, the 5% would be roughly 3.4 hectares. So looking at about 5 times the dedication of land for park, consistent with the rezoning application. So again, this is just for interim purposes. It will be registered by, like I say, with the 219 covenant that will guarantee to both the council as well as members of the public that land dedication will occur. So again, I think it's largely just for information for council tonight, and in the near future we'll be before you with the rezoning application.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions from members of council to our staff? Councillor Beddoes, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been here a few years. I've never seen one like this before, and I'm not clear as to why we're doing this. What's the advantage if there's a parkland dedication will be coming anyways, and why are we peeling off this portion now? And we're actually just preliminary support. So staff, could you elaborate? Just what are we doing here? I'm not quite clear.
Sure, through your worship. So this definitely is a bit of an unusual situation. The PLA for this application was provided to the applicant in February of 2024. Typically what would happen afterwards is the applicant would work through the conditions. One of those conditions was to work through creating a phased parks and trails master plan for this property. As the report identifies, there is also a rezoning application going forward. So what's going to happen is that there's a whichever application reaches the finish line first, so to speak, whether it's subdivision approval or seeking approval with council for the rezoning. The details of the Parks and Trails master plan for this property needs to be sorted out. One of the conditions of the PLA is that works and services be provided prior to subdivision approval. The applicant has submitted a design drawing assessment application, and that is currently nearing completion and almost nearing acceptance by the engineering division. And we cannot move forward with acceptance of that unless we have an understanding from council that the proposed park is acceptable. The acceptance of parkland has not been an item that has been delegated to staff, and that is a decision of council. So in order to allow the applicant to move forward with the works and services for this phase of the development, they're seeking preliminary support for the parkland provided at this time. But prior to final subdivision approval, the final phased plan will be before you for your decision.
His follow-up question is, staff okay with this? Or do they have any concerns or?
Staff are recommending approval or provision of.
It just seems so unusual to me that we're even here discussing it at this stage, and maybe I don't know all the ins and outs of what you're going through there, and obviously I don't, but that's why we have you. So yeah, I just find it odd. I'll wait to see other councils talk first.
Well, I could add to that. It's just primarily a timing issue to allow the developer to move forward with the stage of development while staff and the developer are working through the finer details of the phasing plan.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Blewett, but is this because the way the parkland is coming to us is in phases? So the first part of this is under the 5%, but overall it's going to be greater, but whereas if the one phase had the 5%, then it wouldn't come to us. So, but it's because this is built out in phases, the end result is more parkland. That's what makes it different. So if there was a 5% dedicated, it wouldn't come, but it's just the way it breaks down over time. So that's the difference as to why this requires a council resolution. Is that correct?
Well, for clarification, so with subdivision, the Local Government Act requires a minimum of 5% or up to a minimum of 5% parkland dedication. The rezoning, the applicant is proposing to provide a greater value. So the phasing plan will identify which portions of that parkland dedication will be the 5% in accordance with the Local Government Act, and the above and beyond that the applicant is providing through the rezoning process. So if the rezoning were not to move forward, the applicant may choose to not provide the above 5%. But at this time, because this is specifically tied to the subdivision, we need to, because the Local Government Act requires this, we need to have an understanding of what overall is going to be provided, and that'll be in the finer details of the phasing plan. And then this 0.56 hectares is a portion of that 5%.
So that would protect us overall, that the district in the end will receive its share.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's why it's different because of the way it's laid out to us. Councillor St. Pierre?
Through your worship, I just want, again, just to clarify. So what we're looking at is a subdivision. We're looking at wanting to move forward the development. It's a phased development. In order to do that, they need to contribute 5%. According to the process, we can't change that, except that council can deal with this parkland issue. Staff cannot deal with it in this way. This is why it's come forward this time, because otherwise they can't move forward with the process. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the applicant could provide either the full 5% now or enter into an agreement and provide the overall 5% over time.
Okay, and it's because there's an overall lack of flexibility in terms of, this is very much cut and dry, and the only way to get any sort of dispensation whatsoever is to come to council, correct?
That's right. It would be inappropriate to accept the DDA application, the design drawing, in order to allow them to move forward with the works and services without some endorsement from council.
Because it's dealing with parkland.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, so I guess we've done this before with the Mariners Village. This next phase, phase 2 of Mariners Village, they're advancing their amenity dedications to the next phase. So I did have a question. It's wonderful to see these concept plans and really get a sense of how this thing will be built out in 7 phases over a number of years ahead, obviously. And this is phase 2 we're looking at tonight. I have been asked the statutory right of way to be used as the fire service access off Henlon Road in the master plan will that be an access point, a road access point in future? I could ask to staff, please, through you.
Through the chair, I believe that's just an emergency vehicle access.
Excuse me?
It's for emergency vehicles as proposed.
At phase 2, and I'm just interested in future, and homeowners on Hanlon are interested in whether there will indeed be a road access at that point. So you're nodding, and yes, that is affirmative. On page 44, the map on that page, next at 44 or 42, I think it's 44, and there is a dark green area. I'm just curious, what is that dark green area? Is that an elevated, is that elevation, or what is that?
I can answer that through your worship. So as mentioned, there are 2 applications moving forward. One is a subdivision application and one is a rezoning application. The darker green sort of horizontal hatched area, that is what the applicant is proposing as the 5% portion of parkland dedication to be provided. But these details, this is still a concept plan, and still those details will still be worked through.
Green areas in the map here add up to those 18 hectares.
That's correct.
Yes, for park dedication. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Bagnall? Oh, Councillor Pearson. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you through the chair, and your worship. So what I'm hearing is that overall, we're going to get more park dedication. We're confident we're getting more park dedication than the 5%, but it's phasing in. And all we're looking for tonight is, are we looking for a motion? Because I didn't see a recommended motion.
There's one on our screen that unfortunately you cannot see, but there is one in front of us here.
Okay, and so I'll make that motion if someone could read it to me, please, through the chair.
It is that council provide preliminary support for the dedication of 0.56 hectares of parkland for subdivision ENG 03871, subject to registration of a section 219 covenant securing a comprehensive phased park plan for the subject property to be finalized and brought forward for council's future consideration. So that's moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Would you like to comment further, Councillor Pearson?
No. Yes, I would a little bit. You know, this is an ongoing subdivision that's been part of multiple councillors, multiple councils through the chair, yourself and myself. They've really done a good job of this subdivision and have lived up to every obligation from the start to finish. So I have 100% confidence in this subdivision and the developers in this case. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I was a little confused at first, and thank you to staff and for explaining that to me. And again, I know of the subdivision up there that's there now, and it's very well done. So I have no concerns at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, I was very pleased to see this, the fullness of the vision here on at Aaron Estates. Phase 1 was really beautifully designed and expertly delivered, and I've no doubt whatsoever that the remaining phases will also meet that level of quality and attention to detail. It's worth noting for those tuning in at home, there will be a mix of at least 230, I believe, single-family homes, low-density site-adaptive townhomes, medium-density townhomes around a commercial village site with a playground and neighborhood park. And I think it's interesting just to note here that this is density occurring where infrastructure exists, I believe. The West Coast Road is at the doorstep, and there is a wastewater treatment plant not far away. So I think that's worth noting. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Just briefly, if it's one of those cases where if we don't actually move forward with this, it's just not good for anybody. The development will still move forward, probably not in as good a form as it could. So I think this is definitely worth moving forward to at this point. We have more parkland, and it seems to be a good development.
Okay, thank you. So so I'm clear on the motion here is it's the park plan that will come back to council, not the covenant itself, though. That'll be addressed, registered. So the applicant can continue moving on with their applications should this motion pass?
So prior to subdivision approval, both the plan and the draft and the section 219 covenant will be before council for your approval.
Okay, so we'll see both of those one final time then.
That's right.
Okay, it's just part of the process. Okay, understood. And just for the public, it's the section 219 covenant that protects the parkland. And then it's registered on title. So in the event that the applicant decides not to proceed or there's a change in ownership, it always remains on with the land. So that's where one would have to unwind itself through that process and come before council to make an argument otherwise. So, but in this case, it does advance this along. So thank you everyone for your work on this, and we'll see you hopefully soon just to get this done so you can move on to the other elements of the planning. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we're into the notice of motion section here. So the first one, I will read it out and then we'll look for a seconder, and then we'll look to have a discussion about it. So this is brought forward by Councillor St. Pierre. And that is that council directs staff to submit the following resolution to the Union of BC Municipalities. Whereas malicious Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, FOIPA requests have been employed as a tool to harass municipal staff and elected officials, thereby undermining the efficient operation of our local governments. Whereas as the clause dealing with vexation requests can be used to dismiss potentially legitimate requests and does not protect local governments and elected from harassment. Whereas the current FOIPA process, while designed to enhance government transparency and accountability, is being exploited in ways that compromise both the intent of the act and the effective functioning of public administration. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Union of BC Municipalities advocate the province to implement the following in regards to the FOIPA legislation. Amend Section 43 of FOIPA to clearly define frivolous or vexatious requests. Amend Section 43 of FOIPA to introduce legislative measures to prevent abuse, such as the authority of a local government to dispense with frivolous or vexatious requests, and seek additional measures from the commissioner for requests of this type. And 2, appoint a parliamentary committee to conduct a formal review of FOIPA and provide recommendations to the province on the criteria used to assess FOIPA requests, incorporating feedback from local governments and the public on the application, implications, and effectiveness of FOIPA. So that has been moved already by Councillor St. Pierre. I will look for a seconder.
I will second.
And that is seconded by Councillor Bateman. So over to Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So it's interesting. There's a lot of strong feelings about this, but as it happens, I think that most people are actually on the same page, whether they realize it or not. As it happens, the issue that I was trying to address and that I'm trying to address here is that the FOIPA legislation, generally speaking, is not doing necessarily what it wants to do. It's meant to actually allow the public to access records and access information relatively easily. But I've spoken to members of the public who have said that their requests were basically dismissed as vexatious. They never got the information back. And it took them 2 years to get that particular response. Without something better than the definition that is available, as I understand it, basically, whenever people don't want to provide the information, they can just not do so. And that's all there is to it. Instead, what seems to be happening is, and I've spoken to electeds in other local governments, is that we have essentially it being used as a tool to harass electeds and staff. And not by members of the public that are just looking for transparency, but by people who are really just trying to do that. The intent of this resolution would be to actually try and, first of all, have greater transparency. I happen to agree with a member of the public when it was stated that we should just have most of these records being public. We should just have them public, and that way we don't have to actually make requests. They should just be public. That would be a lot cheaper for everyone if we could actually find good processes to make that happen. It doesn't actually make sense to me that we would have staff going through thousands of emails, taking out people's personal names at great cost to the taxpayer, instead of just making stuff available and maybe having, for God's sake, an AI taking out their names or some such. All of this has to do with my feeling, and it is a feeling, but it is a strong and supported one, that the legislation is not doing what it was intended to do, which was actually to provide transparency for the public, and it's not doing that. As such, I think that it needs to be re-examined. I'm glad to know that there's a body that's doing that. This resolution going forward to UBCM would do no harm. UBCM and the province can decide what they want to do with it. If, as members of the public have indicated, it's a huge waste of time for everyone and entirely wrong, then that could be determined as well. But my impression from research, from speaking to people who deal with this, from speaking to lawyers about this, from speaking to other electeds, and from speaking to members of the public, is that this could be useful.
Okay, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, so I'll just begin by noting that at UBCM, local governments and councillors in local governments have an opportunity to bring forward resolutions that can be brought forward with a majority vote to the province for consideration. Therefore, the issues that go before UBCM cover the broad gambit. So it's not like we're driving out of our lane when moving forward with a desire for human rights tribunal or any other matter that we bring forward to the UBCM. And I can speak on behalf of all the 190 local governments in BC. So when we get to these matters, this matter, we have two component asks here. Amend section 43 of the legislation to clearly define frivolous or vexatious requests. As Councillor St. Pierre just said, there is no definition within the legislation here. Unlike Ontario, where if you look at its legislation, there is very clear definitions of what those two words mean. Mrs. Lewis noted that who wants we need guidelines on what these words mean, and the guidelines would arise through a legislative committee. As was noted, there was one created in 2021. The legislation, FOIPA, was in fact established in the early 1990s, and every 6 years, the legislative committee reviews this legislation. So this will be happening again in 2027. So I'm not sure the second part of the motion is required, but certainly the first part is required, I believe, to create clarity moving forward. I think it's important to note, I mean, freedom is not just another word. Transparency is is a concept that the district has taken very seriously over the last number of years. And you can see that if you go on our website, you will see a great vast volume of information. And yeah, I could go on, but I'll just quote, local governments recognize that all orders of government have a duty to make information available to members of the public. And that is clearly stated in this FIPA report that came out in April 2021, which informed the new legislation, the amended legislation that came through in November 2021. So having said all that, that's it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question, Councillor Bateman. So you had indicated that there, and we heard that there is already such committee as had been established and completed its work a few years ago.
Will again in 2027.
Okay, so would it not then why are we advancing this at this point? If this like if this is going to be reviewed every 5 years, then would it not make sense to review it when it's due for review?
Well, I would suggest that a way for a local government to provide a suggestion or direction to the parliamentary committee would be to say, well, actually, we would like to see clear definition of frivolous or vexatious within the legislation.
But would that not come up? And maybe I'll ask the mover.
Would it or would it
as
not?
well, like-
It did not come up in 2021 when I reviewed the report earlier today.
So it did not come up then, but it doesn't mean that it would not come up. So why not just wait until it comes up for review? Like, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? That's what I'd like to know. Go ahead.
The problem is that the legislation has been around since the 90s. We've had, I would imagine, 3 or 4 of these committees. None of them have actually to this point addressed the fact that, as a member of the public has stated, at this point, any government official can just make up a reason to say that it's frivolous or vexatious and dismiss the request. That's what's happening right now and has been going on since the legislation has been in place. Without actually mentioning it directly and saying, this is what's happening and we'd like you to look at this, there's no reason to believe that history won't repeat itself. We'll have another committee, we'll have another review, and things will continue as they have, which is to say the public still doesn't have any real benefit from a very expensive process.
Okay, so I hear that in what your rationale is, but it's not in the motion. There's nothing in the wording of the notice of motion itself. So if that was to stand on its own, that says this is the problem, that we're receiving feedback that these items are being dismissed. I don't see that in here. Like what I see in here is more the malice, or it's been used as a tool for harassment. That's another issue. So in the body of this, it doesn't call that out. Well, it's still combining dismiss potentially and does not protect local governments and elected from harassment. So it's like this needs to be retooled a bit because there's 2 issues combined in one sentence. So that's where I think it can, for me, it was drowned out. I don't see that. I don't read it that way.
They only allow 3 whereas clauses.
Well, then okay.
There should have been 4. You're correct.
Or maybe there just needs to be 2. If one is the case that we need to address it because these are the 2 issues. A, it's being used as a tool for harassment, number 1. Secondly, for whatever reason, and I don't have the language to say that legitimate requests are not being handled and there's no accountability or transparency as to why they're being thrown out.
The issue that I'm trying to address is that the lack of a clear definition allows for both of those things to happen.
I see.
So in fact, when you don't have a definition of vexatious or of malicious, a proper one, both things happen.
Your worship, or corporate office.
Okay, I'll go to Ms. Bagnall and then to Councillor Beck.
Thank you. As the Freedom of Information head for the District of Sooke, I might be able to provide some clarification on the first piece of the technical jargon in number 1. As it stands under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, local governments at this time are not able to essentially determine that any requests are frivolous and vexatious. There is not a clear definition under FOIPA, as well as we do not have the authority to apply that definition to any requests. Taking on frivolous and vexatious requests is a several-month venture with the Office of Information and Privacy Commissioner. As well, it is confusing for FOI heads because the application that the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner uses to determine if a request is frivolous and vexatious varies from community to community.
Also, Counselor Pearson, I think, had his hand up.
Okay, Counselor Beddoes, you had your hand up and then I'll go to Counselor Pearson.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused as to actually what Counselor St. Pierre, my understanding is that he was concerned more about the harassment side of things. And then also it pivoted to, we're not allowing free speech and people to inquire about things, but we don't have the power to do that anyways. The province is reviewing this on an ongoing process. They have a committee. To me, at the best, we just send a letter to the committee and saying, this is our concern, it's the definition. And then I hear from our corporate officer that the definition is determined differently by each jurisdiction. So I cannot support this as it's written. I'm not sure how to, I'm not a wordsmithing person, but I will not support this resolution.
Counselor Pearson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It feels to me like it's a slippery slope. I fully understand and appreciate we have concerns within the FOIPA legislation that we're not getting answers on time, but for us to sort of delve in, feels like we're diving into too low in the weeds for us as a council. This should be handled by the provincial government. They're the legislative body that governs FOIPA. I would much prefer us to approach the committee when it does come up for review of our concerns, and that time I think it will. And I don't want to guess what UBCM would do. I think it has the potential to get lost in UBCM because of the 150 odd motions that get brought forward. I can't support it in this concept. I understand what Councillor St. Pierre is trying to say and do, and I don't disagree with the concept. I just don't think it's in our wheelhouse.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just note that the resolutions can be like 260, not just 150.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, just one more comment here, and it relates to this wouldn't be, if it passed forward, the first time UBCM saw something of this kind. Logan Lake, BC in 2022 asked that UBCM asked that the Office of the Information Privacy Commissioner for British Columbia review its thresholds for disregarding requests submitted under Section 43. And that's the area where we're talking about frivolous or vexatious. Those words are used. And there is a response here from the office, and it very clearly states, states a lot of things here. Any application by a public body to my office to disregard an accessed request will, of course, be carefully considered because it effectively curtails or eliminates an individual's statutory rights. But as I have said, those rights also need to be exercised in good faith as their abuse detrimentally impacts the rights of others and harms the public interest. So he is staying with the status quo. Adjudicators will assess all of the evidence. His adjudicators will present all of the evidence presented and decide whether the public body has established that one or more of the circumstances in Section 43 applies. If a public body is not satisfied with that decision, which as stated will take 2 months at least, they can seek a judicial review of the matter. So I very much appreciate the opportunity to respond to this resolution and think it would be beneficial for our offices to maintain an ongoing dialogue about issues arising from the application of FIPA to local government. And of course, that will happen again in 2027. So yeah, I think like Councillor Beddoes, I find the motion too rich. And I think I will have to go on a diet in voting for it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor St. Pierre.
I'll just have a follow word. I see which way the wind is blowing anyway, so it's, it's mostly for information. I think that so long as we don't actually have clear definitions on these items, we are shutting down the voice of the public. We are actually putting the power directly into the hands of some 300, 2,000, however many local governments to define it and then come up with their own definitions. We're also creating a situation where there's an extraordinary cost being borne by the public across all of BC. simply because we don't have proper definitions and it hasn't been done before. I don't have any reason to think it will happen again without a push. Having said all of that, and I'd like to address Councillor Pearson on this one, it is directly the role of this council to bring forward resolutions where appropriate to UBCM. This is their wheelhouse. We can't do anything about this because it's not our wheelhouse. Everybody's absolutely right. This is not our wheelhouse. We are simply being subjected to it, and our residents are being subjected to an ineffective process. It's up to us to try and do something about it. That is our wheelhouse.
Okay, thank you, council, and I appreciate the work that you're doing here and the problem that you're looking to solve. It's just, I can't see it clearly in this. And so with resolutions, because of the volume, you need to be able to just read it and understand it. And then you hear from the microphones why and a bit more, but it's not in here. The way that I read this was that is being a tool of harassment. I'm not seeing clearly that the definitions are resulting in a disservice to the public. So an option would be to focus more on that, because the unfortunate reality is we deal with harassment as public elected officials, and that is a whole other matter. And I'm aware that this can be time consuming, but we also receive reports from our staff on service calls and calls for service, and then we orientate and budget accordingly to address what is coming through on the public. Similar to what we had with the RCMP earlier today, there's calls for service. What are they targeting in priority shift? And that's where every year we do our financial planning, our service planning to see that. So I'm not seeing this clear. I'm not seeing definitions as the problem. I hear what you're saying, that it may have been raised before and the committee may or may not be listening. Well, it's been over 50 years, and the province finally thought they would do something about public hearings. And we've been advocating for a change to the community charter and the local government act itself. Those would be ones that actually can impact the way we service, even property tax reform. Like, that's over a century old now. So in this case, like, I get the spirit of what it's just not clear. I don't see it written in the way that it's designed. So I'm not supporting it, because it needs to be able to stand clearly on its own, so that if any one of us as representatives of council are asked, oh, Sooke is sponsoring X, I have no idea what we're actually doing would be my answer. I don't remember, because it's not clearly laid out. Maybe I wouldn't answer quite that way. I'd probably send them to talk to you. But as the point person, I need to understand the problem statement, and I don't see it. So on that note, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And opposed is Councillor Beddoes, Bateman, Pearson, and myself. The motion fails. And we'll move on to item 10.2. Online education and testing for updated road safety practices. Would you like to read this, Councillor St. Pierre?
Okay, so online, whereas in recent years, the road environment has evolved significantly with modern road designs and increasing multimodal road use. And whereas an analysis of ICBC collision data suggests that drivers with outdated training are more likely to be involved in preventable accidents, therefore be it resolved that ICBC design short online training modules and require testing prior to license renewals.
Okay, is there a seconder for this?
I will second the discussion.
Seconding for discussion.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay.
That's why we're here. Councillor St. Pierre, it's your motion. Go ahead.
Okay, so the main reason for this is that we have essentially changing infrastructure. We didn't used to have roundabouts. The changes in how things like crosswalks are being used. We have trails that are being shared between pedestrians and cyclists and so on and so forth. Our whole transportation environment is changing to be multimodal with mobility assist vehicles, EV bikes, just changes in how the roads are designed, signage, and so on and so forth. And basically, all drivers need to be updated regularly on this evolving context. Without that kind of education, people don't know what to do. Not everyone knows what to do with a roundabout. Not everyone knows what to do with any of the stuff we're dealing with. I don't know how fast to go on an EV on a parked trail. I don't. So there's a huge vacuum of information for everyone. Unfortunately, or fortunately, We do have drivers who get licenses, so we can actually do some education at that level. And that keeps everyone safer. It's cheap and prevention is far easier than trips to the hospital, deaths, damage, and all the rest. The idea that this is actually a huge burden more or less says that we shouldn't really bother with driver education at all. Education is about prevention. It's about actually saving lives, preventing accidents, saving money overall. Every trip to the hospital, every accident that kills a few people costs us in society a whole lot more than education. Education is about prevention. And right now, we have a very quickly shifting context, and everyone needs to be kept up to date. So that was the intent of this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, so I did do some research here. Every day over 760 traffic crashes happen in BC, with about 150 of them being serious. Speeding, distracted driving, impaired driving are the leading contributing factors. In 2023, the total cost of transport accidents in BC was $575 million. And each year, more than 78,000 people are injured in motor vehicle crashes in BC. That sounds high, but that's what I cut and pasted here. It's interesting to note that in April, just last month, the province introduced changes to its graduated licensing program. And if this legislation is passed, starting in early 2026, drivers with a Class 7 novice license and a clean driving record during a 12-month period won't need to take a second road test to get a Class 5 license. So these, of course, are new drivers. And really, I believe the motion is addressing the likes of me, who has been on the road for 40 years and with a clean driving record, one speeding ticket. On a particular, sorry, that was long ago in my misspent youth. Anyway, I think the trend seems to be towards less testing. And one of the things that came up in the discussions around this graduated licensing change, in Canada, only BC and Ontario currently require a second road test after you've got your novice license. And the idea would be ICBC give lower rates for drivers who have completed occasional, regular, recurrent training programs. With financial incentives, BC drivers would be encouraged to participate in regular driver education. And maybe in that way, we could lower the occurrences of motor vehicle accidents, injuries, and death. But there doesn't seem to be much appetite at the provincial level for additional testing. So yeah, I'll vote against this.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I too can't support this. If you want to get updated on roundabouts or anything like that, they have online training now for new people. So if you feel that you're slipping and you don't understand how it is, you can go online and take what a new driver would. You don't have to sign up and pay for it, but you can go through their training module. And it does explain everything in what a young driver will come across, which will be roundabouts and all these things. And when it comes to people turning 80, then it's mandatory that they go for another test, or they see their doctor to see. But that's not so much for the knowledge. That's just to see that you know when to hit the brake and when you hit the gas pedal. So I think, again, this is, I understand Councillor St. Pierre's concern. I don't think it's a big problem on the road. I think people adapt. Like for me, I mean, I've been driving probably longer than you. And and believe it or not, I've had one speeding ticket too when I was 19 years old. And maybe it was two. I had a motorcycle too. But anyways, I'm always learning. And, when roundabouts came out, I found some of them, they're still confusing. But if you're going to the airport, that one scares me all the time. But we adapt, and that's the nature of human beings. And I'm more concerned about people's motor skills, enabling to know when and how fast they can hit the brake and not drive through people's front windows. So I won't be supporting this.
Councillor Pearson, any comment?
my comments are just simple. Again, it's, ICBC is a pretty progressive organization. I think that they're thinking all the time at accident reduction, harm reduction, saving lives. And, their indications of the late are reducing testing requirements. So, I think it's kind of outside our, and, I've said it twice tonight, outside our wheelhouse. I will not be supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you. I'm not in support of this either. I appreciate the work that you're doing, again, Councillor St. Pierre, and bringing something forward. Our multimodal, like our road designs are meant to make the road network safer and to protect pedestrians with separation from traffic. Some of the issues that we hear about, though, are more vehicles crossing the center line for whatever reason that might be. I'm not sure why, but then we're having high significant impact. So is it distracted driving? Is it medical? I don't know, but that seems to be an ongoing issue on Highway 14, or sometimes even around Sooke, that is the case. It's distracted driving and someone's in front of you, and so you're driving defensively. I'm a strong advocate for young people to take driver's education. I would never teach my son to drive. I'm not a bad driver, but I'm not patient. He just needs to learn from a trained person like I did. But in terms of the renewal, there's been times where I've realized, wow, my birthday is tomorrow, my driver's license expires. I need to get in there to renew it. I'm hearing right now that they are very busy in ICBC. And now if it's the case, well, did you do the test? No. Well, now I'm driving without a license. I'm not saying I haven't had it, but it could happen because the 5-year renewal creeps up on you. So it's a service delivery piece, and they're not meeting that now in some ways because people that are looking to get service are being turned away because of the volume here in Sooke. We've advocated for the senior driver testing that occurs in Sooke, and that was something that was a good advocacy to make happen locally. That service provides that service to our residents. In terms of trail use, it's just always been and I'm just raising this because I have a sign in my office that the bike will always yield to the pedestrian, but both the pedestrian and the bike will yield to the bear or a horse in all cases when sharing the trail. That's just standard trail safety, is that you yield to the pedestrians. And that's where the CRD on the Goose is doing some pieces around speed management and keeping pedestrians safe in some areas. But at this time, I'm not supporting this. I don't feel that it's just going to, I think, create a service problem that I don't know that ICBC can manage at this time. They're obviously looking at ways to improve and streamline a service, and maybe that's why the second testing has been removed, or they feel that it's not necessary, as is other province. I saw the announcement. I don't know the rationale behind that. But that may be a reason why. But the distracted, if you took the online module, you're distracted driving or driving impaired, you will continue to do that until you either are impacted in an accident or pay a very significant ticket or impound fee. And only then might you change your way and be a more driver. So maybe, looking at more road safety, which is a police priority in dealing with those matters, as stated earlier by our CMP, might be a way to improve road safety, because now there's a heftier consequence. So I'll leave it at that, but I'll let you speak for a second time.
Okay, so well, the wind is not blowing my way tonight, it looks like. Having said that, as was pointed out, the graduated system is on its way out. And the reason it's on its way out, I've done my research on this one, is because it's data driven. And what it showed was that there was no actual improvement in statistics based on the graduated system. So they didn't want to actually have to extend the road testing, go to the extra cost, all that additional paperwork and so on and so forth for something that was actually not saving any lives or reducing any collisions or keeping young people safe on the roads. And that makes perfect sense. In terms of something that our mayor was saying, road safety, the easiest way to increase road safety is actually with better habits and through education. And accidents, waiting until you get fined or until you have an accident because you're on your phone distracted and you didn't go check out the module that was online on distracted driving. There's so many things. Electronic devices were not a part of what you could do in a car previously. There are so many different elements that we just haven't been brought up to date. And not everyone knows about these modules, and not everyone goes to these modules. They already exist. They already exist. We're looking at a huge public service administrative cost. Well, yes, you would have to look at a module and probably check out a couple of boxes in an online quiz and then go ahead. It's not. And maybe I'm naive, and maybe it would be so much harder than all that. But the bottom line is that what I'm suggesting would save lives and probably reduce the congestion snaking out from our roundabout as people come to a screeching halt and basically treat it like a four-way stop. It's not a four-way stop. It's a roundabout. It's different. They just don't know. So what we have is congestion that we could avoid, frustration that's unnecessary, collisions that don't have to happen, injuries and deaths that don't need to happen. But I guess we don't really need driver education.
We do require driver education, and that's the role of what ICBC is doing. And I'm not aware of high impact collisions at our roundabout. Traffic bogs down a little bit, but in fact, the speed is slower, and I may be wrong, and I invite any member of the public to write to me and tell me when the highway was closed because of a severe incident at our roundabout in Sooke. So I just take a bit back to that. We've done our part when the roundabout went in to inform residents on how to navigate it. There's also, and I hear the modules, but I'm also aware of some people that have had their lives significantly altered because someone is on their device and plow through a crosswalk and have significant injuries to that person, facing court time, all of that, and that driver continuing to do it not just once, but several times over, despite being criminally charged. And so that type of consequence, that kind of driver, no online testing is going to ever solve that sort of problem. There's just some people that drive poorly. But the other part, I think, is, yeah, I'm not going to continue debating this. I obviously am a proponent of safe streets and safe communities. But I just feel that the more we do to provide multimodal safe streets will go a long way, as opposed to requiring every resident to go in and either pay some money or something to be tested every 5 years. It seems a bit over the top. So I'm going to call a question. All those in favor? And all those opposed? Councillor Beddoes, Pearson, Bateman, and myself are opposed, and that fails. So we'll move on to the next one. This is by Councillor Pearson. Would it help if I read it out, Councillor Pearson?
Yes, please.
And that is that, let's see here, that council directs staff to prepare a letter to the Regional Transit Commission outlining the concerns in the letter received April 28, 2025, as well as council's concerns around the lack of amenities at the Langford Exchange, the addition of direct service from Sooke to Victoria during non-peak hours, and the improvement and addition of local Sooke routes. So Councillor Pearson has moved that. Is there a seconder for this one? Seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
And thank you, Chair. And one of my motivators was listening to Ely Mina and not making motions on the fly, and also having you back for your comments with your experience from being on the transit board. There's, we want to increase transit. We want to reduce traffic on a road. And some of these are small fix. Some of these are, capital projects. It's just to raise awareness from the position of Sooke Council. And I would like your comments on the, after you've gone through the list. So thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor St. Pierre.
I think we're all of us have read the letter from Mr. Sooke, and there are a lot of real and significant issues that could actually help with transit, especially at the Langford Exchange. I think it's important that this letter move forward.
Okay, any comments for anyone else? No? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so I pulled this initially, but because it did become a really interesting dialogue here with the involvement of BC Transit as they explain, basically give us a bit of a reality check in terms of what Sooke can expect within the Greater Victoria region. And there is mention, and that this recent and local service area improvements as per the what's the word for it? The public engagement that ended last week. And I think staff will find some really good information here from Chelsea Mossy, who you will need to respond to. She is the local government senior manager, government relations. So thank you, Councillor Pearson, for making that motion on the fly last week. And here it is. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just leave it that I do agree with the letter. And it's interesting timing because I'm in a transit workshop tomorrow. And there's always a bit of a gap. So the work that the commission does, you don't actually realize until a year or two out. And for example, ordering buses. So they take upwards of 2 years for the buses to actually be delivered and entered into service here on the island. And what also has happened is transit really took a beating during COVID. The recovery has been very long and quite grueling, coupled with supply chain delays, workers from having even a mechanic available because you're working on over 10 different types of vehicles in the yard, and the growth. So yes, we have a growing need, but in other places there are students that are left behind at stops and the buses are packed. So then the service goes to where there's a need. And then with the rapid bus system and without all of the new buses coming online, the double deckers were moved to that rapid bus line, which is packed all the time. So it's unfortunate because everyone is pushing to use more transit. And when we look at our mode share, it's less than what UVic consumes. So to us, it's a lot because it's the only service that we rely on. But for the student population that is not just on campus, but is all over, it's significant. There was also, so anyway, there's more to come, but I think it would be beneficial for us to send this letter and for transit to actually provide some detail back to our community so that you don't have to rely on me to report out on it. Because I think the staff there will do a far more effective job on what exactly the problems are. We had another notice of motion about local service. Where is that at? So it's just things take time to onboard. So yeah, I'm in support of this anyway. Sorry, Councillor Pearson, I don't have too much to add that's useful, except that I know everyone at Transit is doing their utmost to deliver service to the region. And unfortunately, it's like our schools. We are the last municipality to be considered, and usually we're cut off completely when it comes to our school infrastructure. It gets taken up by Langford and Colwood, and absolutely nothing comes out this way because other busier centers take all of the budget and nothing comes here. And it's similar to transit. It gets absorbed elsewhere and nothing comes here, which then leads to a growing problem of where more of our residents are relying on driving because the transit is not reliable and it's packed and uncomfortable. I raised that with the minister responsible at some time when he was out this way, our Minister of Housing, and raised it at the builders luncheon. This is just for benefit of the public, that he's demanding that we build more housing. And I shared that, well, for us, that is for folks that do want to commute in by transit or the like, it's challenging and difficult and people are often standing. And he said that he takes the SkyTrain regularly and has to stand and doesn't see the difference. So that I'm obviously still upset by that statement that was made, because standing on the 4-lane on a bus all the way out to Sooke, you will never get on that bus again. Where standing on a SkyTrain that is very even keeled isn't really that big of a deal. And their seats do not free up until you probably hit the park and ride in Sooke, and you might sit down for 2 minutes until you get back into the core. So it's not an attractive service, and we are in a place of being left behind. But in this case, I think it'll just be more helpful for transit staff to give us more of a breakdown on what they're working on and when we can actually see something. So we'll leave it at that and call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, is there any new business from any member of council? Items removed from the consent agenda, there's none. The two items of correspondence will flow to the next. Council verbal reports. Councillor Beddoes, you have a bit of show and tell for us
I
tonight.
do. I had the honor, when the mayor was away, to take the grade 1 class through council chambers and trying to explain what we do, which is always exciting to grade 1s. And then one of the things that I had to do, not had to do, but was suggested I do, was explain our crest and what are the different portions of the crest. So I led off with a question right off the bat. I asked a little girl thing, can you identify the animals that we have up there? And she said a leopard and a pig. And I guess the pig is because the deer has quite a big nose. So I thought maybe that's an indication that maybe we might want to redo her crest a little bit. But anyways, I got this back from the kids, and you know, there's nothing more warms your heart than I know the teacher wrote the big stuff, and then the kids signed it. And I always had interesting things say when I ask questions. They say, you know, my name's Harold, and it says my friend Ben, and it was fun. But you don't teach much government to them, but it's good to see, and they remember that. So and then they go down to the fire department, have a really good time. Anyways, I very nice to see that come back.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for work as deputy mayor. I appreciate that very much. Was there anything else to share at this time?
Well, just Sea Park, but it was mostly routine stuff, and I don't think I want to go through any details tonight unless you want to bring something up. But it was just the fee structure and things like that, which is routine business that we do at Sea Park. A lot of it doesn't get flashy news, but a lot of things do happen there. Other than the nice thing about it is the feedback that we're getting in regards to the staff and the quality of the staff and the quality of the managers that are working down there is great. I mean, I hear it all the time, and I'm hearing it from other sources that they really do appreciate our recreation staff down there, and they're doing their utmost to deliver services with the people they have. So it was a very positive meeting. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Councillor St. Pierre.
Along with Councillor Bateman, he can tell you more about it. I attended the Art of the Possible with the village this last week. Gathering of many people basically discussing how to enter into multi-sectoral partnerships in order to build the spaces that we all need, most especially in this particular case for youth. So there was a very much a focus on the Foundry and on trying to build out spaces for youth programming and youth services. And so interesting, a lot of optimism in the room and a lot of different pieces. You have the people with the money, you have the people with the ideas, you have everyone realizing that they don't have what the other person has and they need to work together. So good to make those connections.
Councillor Pearson, I'll turn to you.
Hang on. No, other than I just attended the land use committee meeting last week, which I was good. There was good dialogue there, getting a sense of who the members of the public are. I'm quite enthused with the input and the thought process with our new members of the public on that committee. And the Wantafuka Water Commission meeting was canceled because there's no new business. So that's it for Kevin. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so yes, along with Councillor St. Pierre, I was at this Art of the Possible session on Friday last week. And you've explained that very well. Public-private partnerships are critical. And the great thing about that session was that in addition to all the nonprofits that the Village Initiative represents and local government and others, there were developers in the room. And they need to really, we all need to work together to get these things built. So on that very subject, the Village Initiative's Municipal Leaders Advisory Team, which I've been attending on your behalf, Mayor, that's a group that includes mayors and councillors from the West Shore and Sooke, along with School District 62, Island Health and the Foundry, all in support of the Village Initiative, which, if you don't know yet, is a collective of 60 nonprofits, all youth serving. And the logic being that instead of siloed chaotic and competitive behaviors will work together to really develop a youth strategy for Sooke and the West Shore. So these meetings have led to a point. It's still early, but there's going to be some practical actions to bring a vision of this interconnected youth strategy to life, and that would be equitable funding from nonprofits, grant funders, the province, and local governments for a part or full-time coordinator position for the village initiatives, because it's currently run by a volunteer, putting in 1 day a week. And then secondly, a point person at the participating local governments who could be directly involved in a youth strategy. And Colwood, its communications manager, dedicates 0.15 of her time to this work. And so in due course, a delegation request will be submitted and the village initiative will bring its proposal forward for our and deliberation in Langford, View Royal, Machosen, and Colwood. So that's one thing. I had a Zoom call with Nancy Harris of Accessibility BC about this followed the JDF Corridor Strategy Program presentation back on April 28th. This representatives from Destination Canada and its consultants introduced the next stage of the JDF Corridor tourism plan, which I don't know if everyone knows yet, but Destination Canada is funding us very considerable research and development money here that will allow us the district, to launch the tourism destination marketing once the hotel tax comes into effect, touch wood. And there were a number of really top needs, and I imagine that Ms. Scott will present these to us at a later date, so I won't go into those details at this point. And Nancy Harris was at that meeting, Accessibility BC, and she's very keen to see accessibility initiatives introduced along the corridor as it's developed. She points to Thompson Okanagan as a leader in this work. If you go to the Thompson Okanagan Tourism website, you can take a virtual tour of a wide range of public buildings, resorts, and tourist attractions. So if you are ability challenged, or if you're just deeply curious about planning your trips, you can do so from the comfort of home. So I also CC'd MLA La Jeunesse on this, who is the Parliamentary Secretary for Accessibility. So that's it.
Well, thank you, Councillor Bateman. That's always a very fulsome report, so thank you. I just wish to extend my thank you and gratitude to the deputy mayors, as well as councillors and staff for filling in while I was away doing other things for a while. So I've been back here since May the 1st. So I did take a couple of days off, and I appreciate just everyone doing their part to keep things rolling along, dealing with property taxes, some, other related significant grants, development files. And I'm also glad to see that the Sooke Council Club was put forward for UBCM award. This has been something that I worked on probably since I was elected as mayor. So it's been over a decade now. And it started with students visiting the fire department to get fire training. And I was asked to go and say hello. And I'm like, well, why aren't they coming to see us? Because this is an exciting part of the community as well. So it's evolved in different things. And thank you to staff for bearing with me as we had parades of students going through all the offices. We did at one point have them debating, but then they figured out the microphones were live, the gavel's very loud, and that was a bit chaotic. And then thanks to the work of Ms. Moog, assisted by Ms. Barnes, coming down with something that just would work a lot easier. And that really resonated with the students. It was always a good opportunity because I run into a lot of young people that did say, oh, I was in municipal hall in this grade and I remember meeting you. And I asked, well, did you learn something? Well, kind of, but I don't remember. But I do remember being there and it was an experience for us. So I think it does, it's certainly, I love how it's evolved. So thank you for doing that. Ms. Barnes, I wish you well. I thank you for stepping forward to assisting me with the South Island Reconciliation Advisory Committee, just sort of pivoting to take on all that work, as well as a lot of the admin work and support that you've provided to me personally over the years. So thank you. You will be missed, but I really wish you well in this next journey that you're undertaking. So congratulations and best to you for sure. We also did do the Sooke Council Club with our visiting students from Natori, Japan. And that was a great exchange opportunity for them. And what was interesting is one of the teachers advised me afterwards that these students were all born after the earthquake triggered the massive tsunami that destroyed part of their city. And so they are aware of the Tohoku tsunami, but they came afterwards. I'm like, wow, that much time has passed actually. But the city itself does remember Sooke's contributions and also has a pavilion dedicated to Canada. So they do have art and it's a wonderful exchange that we're continuing to do. And I'm glad to see that our students and the teachers of Journey Middle School have picked this up. There's often a wait list now of students that want to go and participate and also offer to be host students as well. So it's really exciting. In terms of Sea Park, just a public interest piece is the AAP is still live. That's for the skate park renewal. You may see young people using the park or people in general, even though it does say closed, and that's just a public liability piece. We are aware people get injured at the skate park, but in this case, falling on exposed rebar is a different liability risk to the CRD in particular. And the park is crumbling apart. That's why it's being done. And so hopefully I look forward to a good outcome or no outcome to that. So we can actually, the whole park will be smashed and rebuilt in that original location with new modern features of which the youth and led by Councillor Beddoes were highly involved in. From a point of interest is the golf course staff at Sea Park are aware that parking is an issue with the golf course. So they are rejigging to allow more parking on the golf course so that it's not flowing out, because now that ball season's on, we're probably seeing a lot of pinch points with traffic in that Throop Charters area. So it's good to see a response there. And for anyone interested, they're always hiring lifeguards. So good time, anyone who is trained who can do that work, please go see the friendly staff at Sea Park. I'm excited to see the by-election date has been set. Thank you everyone for your patience with that. I understand why the delay was. I will also offer, if anyone is interested in meeting with me, to please reach out, mtate@sooke.ca. I've been in for 17 years. I've done 5 elections. I can probably share some knowledge if you're interested. At least one person has taken me up on that, so that's something. And otherwise, it's just great to see everyone and be back in this space. There's a lot happening and a lot you mentioned Ravens Ridge earlier. It's really exciting to see that park take form, the trees being planted and all of the amenities come in. I was there on a Saturday. There must have been 70 young people in using the court that day. The finished, not the multi-use one, but the finished sport box itself. And there wasn't any litter. It was left, no footprint, no trace. When you see that volume of people, I didn't see it the next day. I'm not saying that someone didn't pick it up, but the youth that are using the facility and the families are really adopting it and taking care of it on its own, which is wonderful to see. And thanks for the yard waste drop off. Becoming a regular of that feature. But the fire smarting in particular that took place at Artisans Garden, I think it's a reminder. I know that we have some of our firefighters that have been away probably doing some of the training. And there was that incident at Secretary Island recently. So it's a reminder that the fire season is coming. So thank you, chief and crew, for just being on guard through all of that, and to all of our staff. The prevention piece is significant. There's been some rain, but it's still significantly dry, and anything we can do as homeowners to protect our property, and the work that you're doing is excellent. So thank you to all of you. So on that, I'll close it off and call it a day. Actually, no, we have to adjourn to go to close. So that is that council close the meeting to the public pursuant to the following subsection of the community charter, the time being 8:08. And that is 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. So look for a mover, please, by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Bateman. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, members of the public, for your attendance tonight, and have a good evening. Thank you.